Okay, we're now live. So, what I wanted to start discussing with us today is I'm actually filming today from a different location. I decided to film from Yeshiva Center. The reason is because today there's a very big event in honor of a special date in the calendar. What's today? 120 years ago, the individual that I believe and that I think that most agree with. Good evening, Sam. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
The evening that I believe, the individual that I believe that made the biggest impact in Jewish history was born. Who am I talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, you figured it out.
Yeah, the rabbi.
The rabbi. The Rebbe.
The Rebbe. The Rebbe. The Rebbe. So what I would like to do is that we have this one discussion. So there's a very big event happening in Yeshiva. If anybody wants to drive down here to Caulfield and join me, you're welcome to. Start at 7 o'clock, but I was busy giving out matzahs, making sure that every Jewish family has matzahs, something that the Rebbe really pushed. So for all of Jewry, I believe it's a very special occasion. The very fact that we're sitting here tonight, the very fact that there's any Chabad house anywhere around the world, or communal seder, or anyone that gets shmura matzah, it's all thanks to the vision of one individual. That's the Rebbe. So if you have any connection to Judaism, it's very likely that that connection comes thanks to the Rebbe's vision. And I certainly consider all that I do as the directives of the Rebbe and what the Rebbe taught us. So what I'd like to divide tonight into two small discussions. One, I'd like to discuss the Rebbe and his impact on Jewry. And the second, I would like to discuss the Pesach Seder. So what I'm going to discuss for the Seder is, I'll do that later on, but I wanted to start with sharing a thought on the Rebbe, if you don't mind. So why was the Rebbe such a unique individual? The reason why the Rebbe is so unique, so different, is that he was the first individual that truly turned Judaism outwards. He was the one that truly taught us how Judaism, the ultimate purpose, how to treat Judaism the way Judaism was supposed to be done, in the most real and authentic way. And for that reason, I think that it would be ideal for us to see a little bit of a glimpse into what he teaches and how he teaches those particular ideas, and how he talks about what it means to be a Jew. So let me explain to you what I mean for a moment. The very fact, if you can't see me for whatever reason, just let me know. Is because the Rebbe believed that after the Holocaust, the focus that we should have today, the focus of Jewry is on the outside, not as much on the inside. In other words, what I'm saying is that in the past, Jews were living in shtetls, and we lived as Jews, and that's almost all we knew. And all your grandparents would have had a Pesach Seder the way it's supposed to be done, without any questions, and they would have married somebody from whichever town they were, if there were some Jewish town somewhere. And the main focus was on study and personal self-improvement. And what the Rebbe taught, and after the Holocaust, where there was the worst and greatest destruction to Jewry in all of our history that we know of, the Rebbe to focus on other people. because so many Jews had lost their faith. Oh, apologies. Apologies. I don't know if you heard that, but something started playing in the background, which was a video that I wanted to show you. So for that reason, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that today, the Rebbe focused on today, the focus of Jewry is going to be outwards. So I wanted to share with you a couple of ideas. Okay, let me just see if this works. I'm going to start with showing you a video, and I'm hoping that this will work. Yes, okay. Be patient with the video. You're going to have to read some subtitles, but I wanted to, in honor of the Rebbe's Day, I'd like to show you a couple of videos of the Rebbe, so I hope that's okay. Sorry, I don't know why the video has just stopped while it was playing. For some reason, it seems to be not working. It was working a minute ago. Why is it not working? I'm not sure why the video stopped working while in the middle. Let's try one more time. No. Sorry, that video is about Shmura Matzah that I want to show you some people's personal stories that the Rebbe shared about Shmura Matzah. So I suppose instead I'll share you some of these ideas myself. So as you would know that with one of the major elements of the Pesach Seder is the matzah. Now, what are the things that we know about the matzah? When you think of the matzah, what do you think of? You think of, I went around giving matzah tonight, and the guy says, oh, you bring me more cardboard. You gave me cardboard last year. I don't need more cardboard, the guy says. So I said, this cardboard is a healing cardboard. This cardboard is a healing cardboard. Why? Because we're told that it says in Kabbalah, the Kabbalah teachers teach us that when you eat the handmade shmura matzah on the night of the Seder, it actually brings us healing. What does that mean? That means that as people, we're a soul in a body. And usually we get our pleasure from our bodily things that we do. Us enjoy physical things, enjoy doing things that you could feel. So you have to always stop for a moment and appreciate, where am I getting my pleasure from? And most of us would realize it's bodily things. I enjoy food, I enjoy sports maybe, or I don't enjoy sports, and I enjoy physical sights, things like that. And that's normal as human beings. But many of us don't realize that we have the ability to also get pleasure from something spiritual. Because most of us, to get pleasure from something spiritual is a bit difficult. Like, when's the last time somebody put on tefillin and said, so tasty, so geschmack, so delicious, right? But the difference is your soul is feeling that. You may not feel the enjoyment of putting on tefillin. You may not feel the pleasure of putting on tefillin. You feel the enjoyment of eating or whatever that thing is that you're eating. But when it comes to matzah, matzah is the one time a year that just by simply eating the food that our body feels, our soul gets pure pleasure from. So what that does is it brings this incredible combination between our physical reality and our spiritual reality. It combines the two. Because here you're doing a physical act of eating matzah. For some people, they might think it's carbon, but I actually personally enjoy the taste of shmura matzah particularly. I really enjoy it. But when I do it on the night of Pesach, I'm connecting to my deepest elements of my soul. Why? Why the deepest elements of my soul? Because most of the time I struggle to connect to who my soul, to what my soul really is. I struggle to connect to my soul because I don't feel it. So I do acts like, let's say I say the Shema. Do I feel, my body doesn't feel it because when I'm in, my soul is in the body. I struggle to feel the spiritual bliss and pleasure that a soul feels. Because now what's overpowering me? My body. That's what I feel. But when we become more in tune with the body, with our souls, what we realize is that even spiritual things can give us more pleasure. Like, let's say, putting on tefillin. Because what we start to realize is that there's a pleasure in doing something that connects me high. What's the greatest thing an individual could do? The greatest thing a person could do is to connect to Hashem, to connect to God, to connect to their creator. There's nothing greater than a person could do as a physical human being, to connect to God. So I may not feel that connection. I may not even be able to acknowledge that connection. And not only that, it will probably be hard and difficult. But when you develop the uniqueness, the taste for it, it's a different thing. And that's the incredible concept of Shmura Matzah. Shmura Matzah, we're told, it gives because it's a mitzvah that enters into your body. It's the one mitzvah a year that simply by eating matzah, it enters into our body and transforms our body. Because of that, both our body and soul feel a wholesome connection with Hashem. So that's what's unique about it. Now, people that give, for example, tzedakah, give charity, they sometimes are able to touch into that feeling as well. They sometimes can feel the pleasure of doing an act of goodness to another person. When somebody does, if you have the person that, let's say you help somebody out, we could sometimes feel the beauty in doing that, right? We feel, oh, wow, that's special, that's incredible. That's something that is unique to people that are in tune with their souls. So you may think, well, I'm not in tune, so there's certain mitzvahs that I struggle with. I can't put on tefillin, but I could give charity or I could help somebody. Those I connect with because I feel like I'm doing something. The truth is that you're doing just as much, you're accomplishing just as much, or in a different way, when you simply do a mitzvah of connecting you with Hashem. You're doing an absolute kindness to your soul. And that's the message that we learn from the Shmura Matzah. So that was one of the ideas that I was hoping to share with you tonight. As I mentioned, for some reason the video, which was working a minute ago, stopped working. I'm going to try one last time to show you part of it. No? Okay. Okay, it's still not working. So I want to move on to talk about the Seder for a few minutes, and then I'm going to get back to the Rebbe in a moment. Give me 1 second. See if I can share this. Okay, so I spoke about practical ideas for the Seder. Now, here's the thing about the Seder. When I grew up, I want you to pause for a moment and think about if you ever, many of you may not have experienced the Seder when you were younger, some of you did. When I grew up, the Seder was something that we used to compete. We would go to shul the next morning and we would compete who had the latest Seder. As rabbis, the competition has changed. It's the opposite. Who has the shortest Seder? But what is it? It's not a competition who could do the shortest. The truth is, it's about how we can be meaningful, but still get the main elements in it. And that's what I wanted to share with you for a few minutes. What are the main parts of the Seder?
But is it we need to finish Seder by 12:20?
You do have to finish the Seder by 12:20. No, sorry.
You get Afikomen at 12:20.
That's right. You're supposed to eat Afikomen by 12:20. That's correct. Sorry.
Latest 12:20.
Late, that's right. Now, when I was a kid, it's funny you bring that up, Sam. When I was a kid, most years we really struggled to get to the Seder by 12:20. For some reason, it just didn't happen. My parents had a lot of guests, and my parents never believed in rushing. They took their time. And normally the Seder would end around 2 o'clock in the morning, no jokes. And that's not with purposely delaying things, but when we went through today's day and age, and I'm not that old, as you can see, hopefully. I don't think that in the quick world that we live in, I don't think that most people are up for it. Most people like to have a quick Seder, or at least the younger generation. Now, it's interesting because in the Seder, one of the things that we talk about is about the rabbis that stayed up all night talking about the story of Exodus. So, are we supposed to stay up all night discussing the Exodus? Or are we supposed to? So what's the answer? The answer is that we have to find what we are looking for in the Seder, but also not to lose everybody else in the rest. Today, we like to do Seders and keep the kids involved. And the Seder is really a night that we're supposed to teach the other generations. But the way we teach in Judaism is through questions and through engaging. The Manishtana, we talk about the 4 questions. Why do we have the Manishtana? Is because Judaism believes that the best way to teach is through questioning. So the Seder night is a night of questions because it's the night of learning. It's a night of discovery. Why is it the night of discovery? It's the night that we get to re-experience our birth, who we really are. The birth of the Jewish people is the night of the Seder. We become the Jewish people on that night. It's a night that we say God revealed himself and took us out of Egypt. That's why it's so crucial for us to be able to connect our children or the adults, everybody. Nobody today has patience when they spend billions of dollars to figure out how to make movies exciting and attractive to people. One person sitting around a table might be a bit of a struggle. So therefore, the first thing I want to say is going into our Seder, try to make it as interactive as possible. And there's different ideas that I'll try to share with you if I can. But the main thing is to remember that there's certain parts that are most important. Number one, so I'm going to mention 5 things. Number one, remember, the Seder is for you to discover yourself. What do I mean? One of the lines that we say in the Seder is B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot atzmo ki'ilu hu yametz. That's Mitzrayim. Every generation we have to see as though we came out of Egypt. The fascinating thing about the exodus of Egypt is that we still stayed with our struggles. We still have people that are poor. We still have we still have pogroms and wars and everything still going on, because the Pesach was a moment that God actually just started the process. And every generation, we continue the process of the Exodus. This year we will be having the 3,334th Seder, Pesach Seder, which has been going ever since the Jewish people entered the land of Israel. So what we got to think about in Judaism, it's about where we come from, and then we can understand where we're going. Where were we going? We were going to Mount Sinai. So Judaism, we were going to Mount Sinai. Why were we going to Mount Sinai? To accept the Torah. Why we were going to accept the Torah? Because we had a job and a mission in this world, which is, by the way, I believe very much connected to today, the Yule the Rebbe's birthday, that I feel he really took that home. How do we accept? How do we make the Torah a reality? So the first important point is that remember that the Torah, that the Seder is about ourselves, discovering ourselves. It's about self-discovery. See how you can redeem yourself, how you can grow, how you can get to the next level. Yetzias Mitzrayim means exiting your limitations. It means how are you growing? How are you tapping into yourself? What are you going through? What are your struggles? Acknowledging your struggles and finding a way to grow over them. Not brushing them over, not forgetting about it. Not saying, oh, it's okay, I'll just live my life and be happy. That's number one. Number two is it's about telling the story. The mitzvahs of the two most biblical commandments of the Pesach is to tell the story of the Exodus. And we do that after we say the Manishtana. And if you don't want to say every single paragraph, you don't, that the main paragraphs are the paragraphs about the actual Exodus and about the Pesach and the Matzah and the Morah. So you could do it quick, but say it. Oh, sorry, I might just have to plug in my computer. Give me 10 seconds, sorry. I've noticed it's not plugged in properly. Apologies. Okay, I wasn't plugged in properly. Okay, so the second element is the telling the story of the Exodus, which means acknowledging that as Jewish people, we have a tremendous history and we have a tremendous mission. You know, sometimes people say, the last week and a half, I've been going around to give people matzahs, as many as I can, and getting to really talk to people and meet people. And a lot of people tell me, oh, Rabbi, thank you for coming, but Judaism's not really on the radar. And they understand where people are coming from their background. They weren't brought up. I was brought up in a religious home and they weren't. But for me, it's funny how many times I said this line this past week. To me, I don't care how religious you are. I just care who you are. You're a person, you're a human being, and if you're a Jew, you're a Jew. No matter if you're practicing or not. A Jew's a Jew's a Jew's a Jew. Because as a Jewish people, we came out of Egypt in order to be the Jewish people. Because we were the Jewish people. God didn't just take any random people out, he took us. He took us out of Egypt because we had a particular mission. He wanted us to teach the world, to show the world something. And part of Pesach is acknowledging that element of who we are, that we're Jewish, that we have a special mission, to be good to the nations of the world, to teach the world about what it means to be a good person and a person that acknowledges that they have a mission in this world, that they weren't just born to live, but they were born for a purpose. Now, the next important thing that I started off with in the Seder is the matzah. The matzah, ideally, it's not just a thing that we do, we have symbolic. Ideally, each person eats half of a shmura matzah, because there's a measurement in Judaism. We always care about amounts. Why do we care about amounts? Because we want it to be significant. Because it's something physical. We care about physical things. If a guy says to me, listen, I'll sell you this land, it's 5,000 square meters. And then you sign the contract, you come to the land and say, no, actually, listen, I was just kidding. It was only 2,000 square meters. No big deal, right? You say, what do you mean? It's 2,000 square meters. It's just a piece of land. What is it? A few extra blades of grass. What's the big deal? No, you would care. You'd be upset. And if somebody goes up to your house or your car and they start making scratches and lines in the car, with a knife and making nice big designs on it, you wouldn't like it. Yeah, we don't want people doing that. Why? Because we care about physical things. So therefore, God, when He makes mitzvahs, He makes them that they should be measured, not for Him, for us. Because if it's just about, it's just symbolic, then it doesn't have any meaning. Only things that are measured, that have amounts, for us will be symbolic. So therefore, we eat a decent amount of matzah, at least a half a matzah, which is a kazayas, around a half a matzah or a third of a matzah. And sometimes you could eat a whole matzah if you can over the different parts of the seder. There's the matzah, then there's the moror and the matzah together. And then there's the afikomen later on. So each one, ideally, you have a third of a matzah. The idea is that the matzah is the way we connect to Hashem, through telling the story. Now, a few more other parts that we have to the Seder night. The other thing that we have is we lean when we every time we eat or drink something. Why do we lean? The reason why we lean is because we want to show that we're free people. We want to show what it means to be a free person. So we actually actively do it. We lean to our left. And you might say, but I don't feel free by leaning. Like I feel like a free person. And I accept that. But we still want to do something which is a physical act, which shows that we're doing that. It reminds us that tonight is night of freedom. But what are we getting freed from? Are we freed from the Egyptians? Are the Egyptians chasing us into the Nile? Are the Egyptians putting us in slavery? Pesach is our own freedom. All of us, myself included, have our own slaveries. And we're most enslaved to our own issues. There's no one that's more enslaved to anybody other than themselves. And the lesson of Pesach is that it's our opportunity to become free and to acknowledge that, yes, I have my issues, I have my problems, I have my things that I get bothered by. But here's my opportunity to say, hey, I, as a human being, can become free. You know what it means to be free? I can connect to the Almighty Creator, to the infinite God that created everything, that is totally beyond anything I can imagine, by simply eating a piece of flour and water and sticking it down my gullet. I can connect to the infinite God. How can I do that? Because I'm a free human being that God has given me this incredible opportunity. That's the freedom of Pesach. The freedom to connect to God in a more incredible way than anybody else. Because God commanding us. The word command means, the word mitzvah means a command, but also means to connect, giving us an incredible ability to connect. And that all starts from Pesach. Now, the next major point in the Pesach Seder is the next is the Sorry, I think I lost you there for a second. Apologies. I think the internet just cut out for a second. Apologies about that. The next major point in the Seder is the 4 cups of wine. What does the 4 cups of wine represent? The 4 cups of wine represents it goes on, there's 4 different words in the Torah that represents freedom. And we say that in Judaism, we say, Ein simcha ela b'yayin, ein simcha ela b'basar. How do we celebrate in Judaism is through drinking wine. Wine is considered a special liquid, and that makes us happy. And one of the things that we're supposed to be on Pesach is happy. And there's 4 different types of redemption. Okay, and that's why we have 4 cups. And when we have those 4 cups, we also lean, because there's a double redemption. The last thing that we do uniquely for Pesach, there's lots of customs, is the maror, and that's to remind us that times are difficult and we're going to go through our struggles. Ultimately, we'll overcome them. Okay. So let's just quickly go over a couple of ideas of how to practically make your Seder somewhat interesting and fun. I'm going to do one more thing. I really wanted to show you this. One second. Oops. The way that we make our Seder fun is by finding. Sorry, I just want to pause for a second. Does anybody have any comments or questions or anything they want to say before I go on? No, it's all been pretty simple, right? So tonight's just to try to go over a few details, right? So far what we've discussed is the specialty of tonight, the Rebbe's birthday, the Rebbe's main focus on turning Judaism outwards, that it's not about us, it's about the outside. Number 2 is we started talking about the Seder. What's the main focus of the Seder? Is ourselves as being Jews or people that we're connecting to freedom and who we are. Number 2 is telling the story of the Seder and what it means to be a Jew and what it means to be free. Number 3 is the Shmura Matzah and the power of the Shmura Matzah, that it connects our body and soul with Hashem. And number 4, we spoke about the bitter herbs and the 4 cups of wine. Now, I'm going to spend a few last minutes on just giving you a few ideas that just, if you're making your own Seder, I think could help your Seder. Some things that I try to do, and I think that could be fun. Try to create, what I try to sometimes do is create an element of suspense, especially if you have younger children coming to your Seder. So an idea that you can do, for example, is you can tell somebody that there's a guest coming. There'll be a guest, a special guest is going to be arriving, and you ask one of the guests in advance to dress up just at the end of the meal part, and then you start giving hints throughout the Seder, saying that the guest is going to be coming, and try to figure out who it is, and eventually say it's Elijah the prophet, right? And then somebody can come dressed up. And then you could say, oh, that's not Elijah the prophet, that's just a man dressed up with a long white beard. And you could have the person, that's what. And it gives you an opportunity to talk about what it means. What's the purpose of Elijah the prophet? An angel, that's something that you can't see in Judaism. Is about the ability to connect to things that we cannot see, to our souls, about who we are. And you can use it as a beautiful segue to a nice discussion of how Elijah goes to all the Pesach Seders, but only we were lucky enough to have somebody actually pretend to be Elijah, so to speak. But normally we can't. So that's one cool little nice idea. Another nice idea is to find online, you could find like Pesach tidbits or jokes or things like that. And before the Seder, stick them under your plate, under the plates, or an interesting line about Pesach and ask people to either read that at different points of the Seder and create a conversation. So we actually have a booklet that have different points, and throughout the Seder, I ask people to read. And then some years what we've done is we've had jokes, and different points of the Seder, I'll ask a different person to read a joke. And that could be a lot of fun. The last a little idea that I wanted to give about how to keep things interactive is try to come prepared with questions. Questions that interest you. And if you want questions, you can go to Chabad.org and other points that they have great questions to discuss at the Seder. If you have a bit of an older crowd, this works better. If you have kids, obviously you try to do more interactive game depending on who your audience is. But when you have older people, Seder is the night to create those discussions. Really, we should do it every Friday night and every time we sit around with our family. But Seder is really the opportunity that often, and I hear this from a lot of people, a lot of feedback from people, that it's the one time that they get to have a conversation with their family. They get to discuss, hey, what does it mean? What does it mean there was this man that was Elazar ben Azariah? By the way, I've heard of people that get someone to dress up as Elazar ben Azariah. Who was Elazar ben Azariah? He's the man that we talked about in the Seder. That was, he said that I'm 17 years, he was 17, he turned 18 years old and he was like a 70-year-old man. Story was that there was a little bit of a debate with the head of the yeshiva was Rabbi Gamliel, and he had been disrespectful to some of the other rabbis. They decided, even though he was a great scholar, he didn't deserve the position, so they wanted to give it to somebody else. Then they chose Elazar ben Azariah. The problem is that he was only 18 years old. And his wife said to him, you're a young pisher. Excuse my language. That means like a youngster, like nobody's going to respect an 18-year-old. You have people over there that are like in their late 90s and 80s, they're going to expect you. You may be the smartest guy in the room. So she said, you need to have a white beard. And miraculously, he woke up with a white beard. And that's important. But the main point of the story is that he says that I never knew if we were going to continue to merit to talk about the exodus of Egypt at night times. It said yes. And he gives a special learning. But you have something else that's interesting over there. He talks about the time of Mashiach, that the rabbis said that no, that even when Mashiach comes, we're going to continue talking about the Exodus. Why? So they bring a special learning. It's a technical learning. But the Rebbe taught us, or Hasidus teaches us, that there's no such thing as just, a pasuk. No, everything in Judaism is part of one whole unit. So why are we sitting 3,000 years later at a Seder? Like we should have got over it. It happened 3,000 years ago. Do you commemorate? Should we make a COVID night to commemorate 2 years in lockdown? Why are we commemorating something that happened 3,000 years ago? There's been thousands of wars and incidents that have happened for the last 3,000 years. Why are we still commemorating the Seder? We've been doing it. Like some guy tells me, Rabbi, it's getting a bit boring. Whose fault it is if it's getting boring? It's your fault if it's getting boring. You haven't studied. You haven't found ways to keep it interesting. And the reason is because Judaism, when we have the main elements of Judaism, like Pesach and Sukkot and Shavuot and Rosh Hashanah, and then you connect it to all of history, continuum, it starts and finishes. All the other things are important, but they don't become essential to what makes us a Jew. And with things that we commemorate every single year, it's because those are the things that make us who we are. Those are the things that help us to ultimately accomplish the whole purpose of Jewry. So Judaism is not, to be a Jew is not to be a good person. It's not to do mitzvot and to do particular acts. It's yes to do all those things. But by us doing that, throughout these generations, we complete a big puzzle. we fulfill a process which takes 3,300 years to accomplish. So we're part of a continuum. And that's why we continue to celebrate and commemorate those elements that are essential to the whole of the journey of the Jewish people. So certain parts are not as essential to all of Jewry, they were essential to a particular people that lived in a particular era. And those people would have celebrated that or commemorated that. But something like Pesach, like Shavuot, like Sukkot, that applies to all of us in all times. So that's why we need to find a way to make it that our children connect to Pesach, connect to the festivals. And not that they say, well, I'll connect as long as I'm a child, but then when I'm an adult, I'll stop doing it. Or if I have kids, I'll do it. No. If I do it only when I'm for the children, then I'm not doing it because I really believe it. You can't do things just for children. Purim is not a festival for children. Hanukkah is not a festival for children. Pesach is not a festival for children. It's a festival that we want to be so inspired by, and we feel so strongly about the power of it, that we give it to our children, that they as adults will continue to celebrate it. But if we only celebrate it when we have children or when there are children around, what we're showing is that it hasn't taken upon us. It isn't true. It only applies to children. And it's not a true festival, and therefore it's not truly important. And that's why it's so important, so important. This is one of the greatest struggles. You know, there's a song that people sing in Purim. It goes like this. Chag Purim, Chag Gadola Yeladim, Masecha B'Rosh. Now, I don't like that song. I'll tell you why I don't like that song. It's probably one of the most famous songs. And I sing it myself. It means the festival of Purim, Pesach, it's a great celebration, La Yeladim, for the children. I don't like it. It's not true. As a matter of fact, the people that are not obligated to fulfill the mitzvah of Purim is the children. The ones that are obligated to the mitzvah is the adults. The same thing with Pesach. Children aren't obligated to hear the story of Pesach. The adults are. Children aren't obligated to have the matzah. The adults are. Children aren't obligated to have the 4 cups of wine. The adults are. But we have an obligation to not only do it ourselves, our obligation is for ourselves, but we have an obligation to teach our children, to educate our children. Why? Because if we don't do it ourselves and it's only for the children, it's not real. It doesn't have a real meaning. So that's the important part. If you want it to be true, you want it to be real, we have to do it ourselves, whether there's kids there or not. You know, 2 years ago, when the whole entire world was in lockdown for Pesach. Last year, Pesach somewhere, and we actually weren't over here in Melbourne, surprisingly. So we got to have nice big crowds at our Seders in Dingley. But 2 years ago, everyone was in lockdown. There was one incredible picture that came. There was a picture of an elderly couple that just a husband and wife, you could see them through the window sitting at the Seder table. And there was I think it was someone in Brooklyn, some non-Jewish person, took a picture of it and showed it through and took this picture. And then I think it was a day or two later, the husband actually passed away. But what was incredible about it is here you had grandparents that had no kids. Every year they had, and the story behind it came out. Here was a man that his grandchildren, every year he does it with his children, his grandchildren, he usually has a big Seder. And this year he had no one. It was just him and his wife. And they sat and they talked and they had a meaningful Seder without everybody. But just because the grandkids went around or their kids went around, it didn't mean that there was no Seder. They still had the Seder. Not only did they have a Seder, oh boy, did they have a Seder. And then afterwards, they found out that person found out, and then it was an incredible story that this person passed away. And then they found this person, a non-Jewish person, had walked past and been so impressed by this picture of this window with the man and woman sitting, but with these Haggadahs. It was a real picture, but it could have looked out of the shtetl, because that's Jewry, that's Judaism. Judaism is not something that we do as a show for our children. We live it ourselves. Judaism we do for ourselves because it's true. And because we do it, our children do it. It's not the opposite. We don't do it for our children, and that's why when we have children, we do it. We do it because it's real. The same as with Purim and Hanukkah. We do things because they're real, because they have real implications. They're really connected to God. And then our children continue doing it as well, because they see that we're doing it because it's real. Okay. I'm going to try one last time to show you the video of the Rebbe. If it works, good. If not, I'm going to open us up for questions. No, still not working. All right. So that's my, I had prepared a few very beautiful videos and stories of the Rebbe that I wanted to share with you tonight. And they were working literally as I started this year. But for now, they're not. So I apologize for that. I want to conclude by saying the following. First of all, when I conclude, if anybody wants to stay on to ask any questions, feel free, and anybody else is welcome to go off. But I want to conclude with saying the following. This Friday night, it's the Seder night. Take a moment, if you can, and try to think, where do you fit in the Pesach story and make it meaningful? What I mean is, try to make this year, if you can, not a monotonous year in Pesach. Try to find a way that this year, the Pesach that you go through, say it's going to have an impact on me. I'll take a part of the Seder and I'll learn about it. I'll read about it on Chabad.org. I'll find something else on it. And I'll try to internalize it and then share that with my family the night of Pesach. Try to find something about Pesach, whether it's something that I discussed tonight about the Shmur Matzah, about what it means to be a Jew by turning themselves outward and being for the other people. Or anything, what it means to say tonight. Find something and give it over to your family. When you do that, and it has an impact on you, and you mean it, it will have that impact that you want. You'll find Pesach more meaningful. Because the meaning is as much as you make it. Because if we go into Pesach and you're prepared and you've done something, it'll be meaningful. Like I started off at the beginning and I said that as human beings, we have a little bit of a, what's the right word? There's a little bit of a disconnect between our body and our souls. We don't always feel that connection. And our job is to try to connect the two. The way we do that is by internalizing the lessons of it. So I want to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful Pesach. And once again, apologies that tonight's shir didn't work out exactly as I had planned, all the videos that I had planned. But thank God, hopefully it was still meaningful. Doing it from a different location, maybe that's why. And I wish you all Mazel Tov for the Rebbe's 120th birthday. For me, I consider it a special day, definitely. If anybody needs something for the Seder, please let me know. If you've got any questions, you're welcome to ask. Thank you so much, and have a happy Pesach.
Thank you, Rebbe. Happy Pesach for you too. Happy.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Inspiring to hear different perspectives of the Seder. And as we say, in the end of the Haggadah, the Shana Haba, Yerushalayim Abnuya, which I hope I will do that. This year I'm here. My wife is in Israel, but with the help of God, I'll do it next year in Israel.
So where are you doing the Seder, Giora?
I have few friends who invited me. Yeah, it's all
beautiful,
good.
beautiful.
It's all good. And I have a lot of friends, and everything is okay. Yeah, it's different. And after, as I said at the beginning, I'll speak with you after Pesach about other things. Thank you very much.
Okay, beautiful. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful Pesach.
Thank you.
Yes, it should be this year in Jerusalem with Mashiach. Hashana Hazeh Yerushalayim. That's what we say. We're not saying that we want the next year. We want to go straight away. That if we leave immediately, Mashiach will come. We'll already be there. So that's
not
what we
always
say.
you can do. Not always you can do what you wish to do, but we have a plan.
That's right. That's right. Well, Mashiach, what I'm saying is when Mashiach will come, all the Jewish people will go straight away to the coming of Mashiach, to Yerushalayim.
Yeah, and we saw in the last conflict between Ukraine and Russia, whoever can be justified that he is a Jew, Israel will hug you 1,000 times. So
that's right.
That's the meaning of Israel today.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very
good
much.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you for your help. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.